Hi, everybody. I am super excited about today's episode. This is our first of what will hopefully become a series of Girl Talk podcasts where I bring on interesting women I know in the lifestyle who have things to add, voices to contribute to the conversation about what it's like to live this life. So my first guest, my most favorite guest, is April from Naughty Gym. And I'm going to let April tell us a little bit about herself and about Naughty Gym, and then we'll get started. And we're talking today about body image, something a lot of women struggle with.
Yes.
I'm sure.
So I'm April with Naughty Gym. I'm one of the coaches. My husband Scott and I started Naughty Gym last January, so it's almost been a year now. And we are an online fitness coaching program for the sex positive community. So I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years, coaching men and women, but mostly women is what I specialize in personal training, nutrition coaching, personal coaching. And so body image is a hot topic with a lot of the women that I deal with. And really, I don't know that I've ever spoke to a woman who didn't struggle in some way with body image. So this is a really important topic, I think, to discuss.
Right. And you wrote a blog post back in October called The Long Road to Loving Myself. And it was a revelation for me because, first of all, you are stunning. Like, let's just get this out of the way. There have to be people who have seen April on Twitter or Instagram or Naughty Gym who are just thinking, okay, if there's anyone in the world who will not have body issues, it's April because she's perfect. But when I read your blog, I realized that it really isn't about what everyone else sees, right? It's what you bring to that interaction you have with yourself in the mirror, right? And you said in that post that if you treat yourself poorly and have a habit of negative self-talk, that no matter how you change your look or your size, you will not change your body image. This is less about your body and how you look and more about your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not really an external thing, it's an internal thing. And we talked earlier with our spouses even. I don't want to say it doesn't matter what they say about us or the compliments that they give us, because we love that and we need that.
Sure.
But that doesn't change my body image because that's something that I feel about myself. And in the article, I don't know how far back you want to go, if I'm jumping ahead.
Well, yeah, I think we need to talk about where does this come from. Right? So if objectively, you've got everything every woman wants, how is it that you come to this relationship with yourself with this negative self-talk? Where does it come from? Where does it originate? What early formative messages did you get or experiences did you have in early life that, led you to believe that you were not worthy, not perfect?
So, and I think every woman that I've spoke to has a story that's similar. So when I was 11, an adult that I loved and adored made a flippant comment about a dimple that I had on my leg. And I can remember exactly what I was wearing, the chair that I was sitting in, and the feel of my face getting hot with embarrassment and shame, and wasn't even sure why, but just took that as something's wrong with me. And it was cellulite, but at that age, I was a very athletic child. I played 3 sports and was a tomboy, was lean and fit, but my genetics passed down that I'm going to have some cellulite on my legs no matter how lean I am. And so I carried that with me as a mark of shame and something's wrong with me. And up until that point, I had never thought about my body in any other way other than I loved it. I didn't think about what I ate. I didn't think about what I wore. It wasn't an issue. But that moment, for some reason, became a trauma mark for me, where I can look back and trace every body image issue back to that comment. And rationally, I know that wasn't meant to cause that much pain. But it was just kind of a thoughtless, passive comment by an adult that maybe had some own issues that had to point out others' flaws.
Right. And it came at the worst possible time in your life, because 11
Right.
is that moment where puberty is starting to turn on and you're starting to
Yes.
become aware of things changing and feeling different, and maybe, attractions to
Right.
other people, and how they see you becomes something that you're aware of for the first time. So yeah, that's the worst time in your life to hear something like
Oh
that.
God, those years are for every child, not just women, the worst.
So awkward.
Your body's changing and you have hormones and hair and growth in places you don't know why.
Yeah, I remember at that age, 6th grade, I was, I think the height I am now, so 5'9",
Right.
88 pounds.
Mhm.
I had women's size 9 feet and scrawny long legs, stick legs. And somebody said something about chicken legs. And I remember going home that night and praying, please God, let my legs get fatter.
Oh gosh.
And so many times I've regretted that prayer and said, please God, take it back.
I just want to hug that little Kate.
But I mean, other than that, I don't think I had a moment where someone I really cared about said something thoughtless like that.
Mhm.
But I did have a mom who was always on some sort of crazy diet.
Right.
So I remember doing the bean sprout diet and the cabbage soup diet
Mhm.
and all kinds of other weird diets, kind of with her growing up. And my memories of her are just filled with her, like grabbing her fat rolls on her stomach and
Sure.
pointing out the dimples on her thighs and constantly berating herself about her body. And so while she never turned that on me, thankfully, I saw it modeled in this woman who is supposed to be, my model for what womanhood looks like.
Right.
And so I definitely internalized it. My sister did too. This really negative self-talk
Right.
and extreme focus on all the flaws.
Right.
And I think, we get that at home, we get that in the media, we get
So-
that from mean kids on the
Yes.
playground.
And there wasn't a lot of education about it.
Right.
Right. I'm 43. During that time, Kate Moss was on the cover of every magazine, and she was incredibly thin and very tall. And I was athletic. I was 130 in 6th grade and at 5'8" with a size 9 shoe. So I was bigger than every girl in my class
Right.
and developed faster. And so it just made me want to just kind of melt into the background and shrink myself. And there was nothing telling me that I shouldn't.
Mhm.
Everything was telling me that your body type is outside of the norm and you should shrink yourself and take diet pills and go on these fad diets. And so I did every fad diet. I can remember my best friend at the time was 80 pounds and 5'2", and we would diet together, and she would steal her mom's diet pills.
Okay.
And we would do 4 saltine crackers a day with Dixie cups of water. I don't know how we survived.
Wow.
And we would do that like for a couple weeks, and then we would eat real food, and we'd do it for another couple weeks. And we had no information on what real nutrition looked like,
Right.
or any role models to look up to, or parents that were saying, this is what a healthy lifestyle looks like, or a healthy body, or, we didn't have guidance in that realm.
Right.
So it wasn't until I got into college and I struggled through eating disorders, bulimia for a little bit, and body dysmorphia, and finally got to a place where I was like, there's got to be some answers to these questions, and I can't be the only one struggling with this.
Right.
And I started to be more open with it, with my friends, and one professor actually, when I was in college in my nutrition class that I talked to a little bit. And that kind of set me on a path into reading every book I could on nutrition and fitness and what does a really healthy relationship with yourself look like.
Right. Yeah, I have a similar high school story where I think by 11th grade I was anorexic, and my mom would faithfully pack the lunch for me every day, and I would guiltily throw it out at school so I didn't have to bring it home. And I'm from a big family, so at dinner time I could just kind of move the food around on my plate and then scrape it in the garbage after without anyone really knowing understand what was going on. And so so I did that for about a year, and then a teacher I cared about at school, one of my mentors, noticed, because I was the yearbook editor and I ate lunch in the yearbook room with her every day, and she noticed I was throwing out my lunch every day, and she talked to me about it a couple times, and then eventually recommended, kind of against my will, she went behind my back and told my guidance counselor and got me hooked up with a regional health nurse, and that person called home and told my mom that your daughter has an eating disorder, and my mom said, no, she doesn't, which just made me feel more invisible and more unseen. And so I continued for the last couple of years of high school, and then when I got to university, and the body dysmorphia thing too, I remember I had like 3 or 4 different outfits, all in a women's size 12. And whenever I bought things for myself, I would buy them way too big. Like I was at that point maybe a size 4. And I would go to the store and feel like if something clung to my body in any place, it was because I was fat. So I just kept going up in size until I had something that didn't touch me.
Really baggy clothes,
and I thought that's what I needed to wear, because I couldn't have anyone seeing all of the things I hated about myself. So it wasn't until I went to university that I started going to the gym there. And I kind of transitioned my obsession with food to an obsession with exercise. So I wonder, you've continued that obsession and made a business of it. But do you ever feel like it's just another place where this kind of negative, obsessive behavior has come out, fortunately a positive way, but do you feel like it's maybe the same kind of headspace that drives you to the gym, that drives you to work as hard as you do?
Absolutely.
Which is insanely hard.
It is insanely hard. So in my 20s, I actually competed in figure and fitness, which is, on stage, on display for everybody to see and critique. And it's a hypercritical avenue to go down. So I didn't do very well in that, because it led me down a road of depression and extreme eating and working out. And so I kind of gradually came out of that. And, it's all been a quest when I look back to find a healthier me. And so even though I may have gone down some extreme roads, it was with good intentions to find, to heal and find what the problem is and the root of the problem. And so I went from fitness and figure into marathon running, and real extremes, right? So, and that was during that period, I was having children. So I had 3 kids from 21 to 30. And so my body was constantly going through these changes that nobody was talking about. Like my friends in the Mommy and Me group weren't talking about the stretch marks and the saggy tits. And, nobody was talking about that. And so that kind of fed into my body dysmorphia and something's wrong with me and why do I look like this and how do I fix it, and the obsession with my body. In my 30s, I found CrossFit and weightlifting. And I think that's really when I started to heal and be more comfortable in my skin. And I stopped weighing myself. I was putting on muscle. And for the first time, I really liked what my body looked like. And I embraced my stretch marks and my curves and my big butt, and
which is amazing.
But it gave, and I really think the culture changed a little bit though at that point. There was more education. Women started to become, it was okay for women to embrace their curves, and so the narrative and the culture kind of changed too. So it wasn't just me, like I did this all on my own. But I think it was maybe just CrossFit, that culture for me was really a good thing for me.
Right. So you said in the article that in my late 20s into my early 30s, I started running 8 marathons, 25 plus half marathons, and hundreds of 5K races later, I was still unhappy with my body. My self-talk was downright abusive. my desire for the perfect body had turned me into a monster.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I thought, oh my God, I live with that same monster.
Yeah.
It's in my head too. And I've so often thought that if someone else were to talk to someone I love the way I talk to myself, I would want to punch that
Right.
person.
Yeah.
I would be so angry and
Like, how dare you
wanting to
say
protect
that?
the person I love from that kind of self-talk. And yet I let it live in my mind and, you know, talk to me in horrible ways about how, you know, you're not working hard enough and you're ugly and you're fat and why can't you just get your shit together
Right.
and do better, work harder. And I think it's helpful to try and remove yourself a little bit and just say, hold on, you need to treat yourself like someone you love.
Right.
Right? And you wouldn't talk to someone you love like that.
Yeah.
So just like,
We
take a
get
breath.
into it is a habit. You know, look at a group of women who take a picture and they're like, let me see that. Oh, look how fat I look. Oh my God.
So do that every
Right?
time.
I do too. But that's something that I struggle with, and I try to make a conscious effort to talk kinder to myself like I would to you, who's beautiful, and every picture I've seen of you is so beautiful.
Every carefully selected
and,
picture.
yeah, but even in person, I tell you, you're just beautiful. We don't talk to ourselves that way, but that's a good start
Right.
to changing our body image. It's not going to happen by losing 5 or 10 pounds. That's not going to change our body image because that's how we view ourselves. You see me one way. I need to try to look through that lens when I view myself. But, you know, like we said, our husbands, their compliments aren't going to change our body image. That's only going to come from within and from the self-talk and from acknowledging those things that happened when we were 11 and 12 years old, that, you know, that wasn't okay for that adult to speak to me like that. They were out of line, and it wasn't an accurate portrayal of what I looked like then or who I was. That shouldn't have defined who I was at 11 years old, because I'm not a dimple on my leg.
Right.
I'm strong and I'm athletic, and I was at that time a great soccer player and a great athlete and a great person, and I let that one comment be the narrative of my life for years.
Right. So you talk about relationships and about how our husbands are very affirming now. I just wonder what role adult relationships have played in your self-image. Have there been people who are especially helpful or especially damaging to you? Either past romantic partners or people you've come across, maybe friends. And what role does sex play? You know, becoming sexually active. I guess we'll talk about the lifestyle a little bit later.
Yeah.
So as you know, we've talked about childhood and university. So as we get into adulthood and these adult relationships, were there any formative moments there, either good or bad?
Yeah, so I had more, unfortunately, bad than good.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So my ex-husband, I was married for 18 years, refused to compliment me or call me beautiful because he thought it would give me a big head. And that was all I craved from him. You know, I just wanted to hear those words, like, tell me I'm beautiful. And so I would do, you know, just like on a hamster wheel, like spinning my wheels, like, what do I need to do? Do I need to wear this? Should I dress this? Should I lose weight? Should I, you know, and he just refused to say it. And so I based my worth for so long, like, well, I guess I'm not beautiful.
Right.
And that was unfortunate, but looking back, I know that was wrong. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of positive influence as far as body image. My mother she struggled with her own body image and self-esteem issues. So my hope is, though, that especially with my own kids and my friends and the people that I love, that I can help build them up and reaffirm that, you know, their worth isn't based on just what they look like, but who they are. And
yeah, my ex-husband, one of my ex-husbands, he was very jealous and possessive. We talked about this on the jealousy podcast, and did not feel comfortable with me being attractive, I think. I think
Right.
it made him feel more insecure. And so he was really disparaging of any time I would wear something that I felt good in.
Yeah.
Anytime I left the house wearing something less than a fully covering garment, he would feel threatened by that and make like mean little comments.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard because I was trying to, you know, through my 30s, be more gentle with myself.
Right.
And it was hard being pulled down and constantly
Right.
poked at and, you know, reminded that you're not allowed to look good and
Right.
you're not allowed to feel good about yourself and stop showing off.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a patriarchal thing. Like men are allowed to be confident, and in women it comes across as bitchy,
Arrogant or
Right.
self-centered.
Yeah. So,
Well, and we're told that, right? You're stuck up, or you're a narcissist, or whatever it is,
Right.
self-centered.
and we both grew up in the church.
Right.
I wonder what role religion has played in how we view ourselves and our bodies.
Yeah. Well, I actually worked in the church for 10 years.
Mhm.
And so I was very conscious of what I wore, because I did have an athletic build, and a lot of the women would just kind of wear frumpy dresses.
Mhm.
And I was actually called into the pastor's office at one point. So I spoke to the women a lot at women's events and conferences, and was told that I was dressing too sexy.
Oh.
And I was wearing business dresses that would go past my knees,
Yeah.
but they were sleeveless, all the way up to my neck, to my collarbone. But
How
that was
dare you?
right. That
In the
I
South.
showed my shoulders too much. And so I can remember that was another instance where I was like, I just wanted to like melt into the couch when he was telling me that I was flaunting it and being too sexy, and I needed to
Right.
change my wardrobe. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, women's bodies are almost criminalized in
Yeah.
religion, right? Like you go right back to the story of Eve, and it was her fault that
Right.
she tempted that man,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, there are verses in the Bible that talk about women covering their heads and
Yeah.
not speaking. And so from the get-go in our religious upbringing, we're told that we're supposed to be small, be quiet, be unseen.
Right.
So I wonder how much that sinks in. And,
Yeah. How dare you have a body?
Right. And don't you dare use it.
Right. Or like it.
Yeah, and don't touch it.
Right.
Okay, so that might bring us in nicely to discussions of the lifestyle. So I think a lot of people, women especially, but men too, getting into the lifestyle have fears at the beginning that they don't want to be seen naked.
Mm-hmm.
I know, you know, for my sister, I really talk with a lot of enthusiasm about hedonism and how amazing it is to be naked on the beach and to swim naked in the ocean. And she says, oh, that sounds great, but she doesn't want other people seeing her naked.
Right.
So I think a lot of people have fears about being naked and exposing themselves in a lifestyle situation, and that's what holds them back from freeing themselves to live this life. Did you have that experience? What was it like for you, being naked in public?
Yeah, I remember the first time. So Scott and I went to a resort, or it's close to us, but and there's a pool, and there's a couple people out at the pool, maybe 3 or 4, and he was like, okay, this is where we get undressed. He had already been there, but I had never been naked in front of him. And so I like quickly took my clothes off and laid a towel down and laid on my stomach.
Yeah.
Like, so nobody could see
Cover
like
as many
my
naughty bits as
breasts, and
possible.
yeah. And another couple came up, and they were fully clothed, came up and started talking to us. And I was like, well, how am I going to talk to them if I'm lying on my stomach? And Scott sat up, and he's super confident naked anywhere he is. And so I kind of sat up, and we started talking, and it just started to become comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was a really good weekend for us because there was such a wide range of people at that resort that weekend, from 20s to 80s, and they were all naked. And that really helped me kind of feel comfortable. Like, if I can't be comfortable naked and this 80-year-old, like, what? It was the most amazing experience ever. It was so freeing to kind of shed any, issues I had with my body and just be naked and be seen.
Right.
And not just seen, but people who didn't care.
Right.
And
or if they noticed in a good way.
Right. It was all like positive feedback. And I'm like, okay, this is a good thing. Like, I don't have to worry about this dimple on my leg anymore. I can let go and I can have a conversation about insurance with this naked guy next to me.
In his 70s.
Right.
Yeah, I think my experience was really similar. So we went to hedonism. I think we had been to a club a couple of times, but they're always very dark at the clubs.
Right.
So we went to hedonism and we went to the nude beach, and it was, the moment of truth. Like, now you've got to take off the bikini, because there's, on the nude side, no clothes allowed. They will come over and tell you to take your clothes off. So I did it with much trepidation, and just like you, lay down quickly. And felt kind of safe in my lounge chair, and was able to watch people walk by, and I felt like, oh, okay, I'm not the worst looking person here.
Right.
This is okay. But then the very frightening moment where I had to walk from my lounge chair to the bar.
Right.
Was a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Because when you're moving, when you're walking
things
through
look
sand,
different.
Barefoot, that ass is a frightening thing sometimes. So it was a very long walk to the nude bar, and I stood there again, like, kind of covering my boobs with the bar.
Yeah.
And a guy started talking to me, and at first it was very strange.
Yeah.
Like, where do I look?
Right. Do I
Like,
look down or up? Look at his eyes.
There,
look
but
at his
I
eyes.
don't want to look at it. And and then as I got my drink and walked back, I started looking around more. So instead of being so self-conscious and focused on how I was feeling, I started looking at the people around me, and there were a whole bunch of older people playing bocce ball naked.
Yeah.
And big people, scarred people, people who, in the world of social media would not be conventionally attractive.
Right.
But I realized that it wasn't about their bodies. They were attractive because they were having fun, and they were laughing and smiling and just being free and unself-conscious.
Yeah.
And I realized they're all so beautiful. And it wasn't about how much they weighed or how many scars or dimples they had. It was all about their aura, their energy.
Yeah.
And that week was so transformative for me in how I view my body. And of course, I still have lots and lots of moments where I hate it.
Sure.
But I started to realize it's really not about what you look like. It's about what you project and who you are that makes you sexy or desirable or beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and we've met people at many events now. All different bodies and shapes and sizes, and they're all beautiful. You're right, because of the energy that they put out. And you can meet somebody that looks, just smoking hot, and then you start having a conversation with them, and immediately you're like,
not so hot.
Oh, yikes!
I changed my mind.
Yeah, you are not hot.
Right. Another big lesson the lifestyle taught me was when I started to embrace my bisexuality. I started realizing that the women I was most attracted to were the women who had curves.
Right.
Like, I would see a woman with big breasts or a big booty and just want to grab it and stick my face in it and smack it, and then when I go into my sexual space, I realize what I'm drawn to is something that if it was my body, I would hate in myself.
Right.
But I want that.
Yeah.
So I think my brain kind of has two parts. There's the kind of more animalistic id side that is just sexually drawn to curves.
Right, that primal instinct.
Yeah, but then there's the socially conditioned part that says, no, you are not
Right.
allowed to have that dimple, even though that dimple is really sexy.
Right.
You're not supposed to look like that, and you
Yeah.
are not allowed to have that on your body. So it's interesting to have this duality of mind. So when I'm in a sexual space, I don't think as much about how I look.
Right.
I understand that sex is more primal, right? That
Yeah.
what I'm bringing to the table is not how thin my thighs are. It's how enthusiastic I am,
Right.
and how how into it I am in the moment, and
Right.
that's the thing that makes it sexy. So I do find that body self-consciousness turns off a little bit in a sexual situation.
I agree. Scott always says I go into the sexual April and I tend to have some introvert tendencies, especially when it comes to playtime or in groups and stuff. But once I get started, I don't even remember a lot of times everything that happens, because it is animalistic, and it's just about the connections and the touching and the sensations and the pleasure, and it doesn't matter what the body looks like. I'm not even seeing that. It's just about the feelings.
Right, and I think that's one of the things that really drew me to you the first time we were together, was that so many women are a little precious about, especially touching other women.
Right.
And you were not like that. You just manhandled me and just went to town.
There's nothing precious.
Going after your pleasure, and it was my favorite thing. I love it so much. And you could see the abandon in you, just like giving yourself over to the pleasure and not thinking about anything else. And that is what is so sexy.
Yeah. Well, that's a safe space. That's the one place where I don't have to think. I can just feel and be who I am, and just kind of shut that off. I have no self-talk in those situations. So it's a really good place to be.
Yes. Yeah, I think I feel the same way. So are there any other lessons that the lifestyle has taught you about how you view yourself or how other people view you?
It's helped me see myself more clearly, and realize that my perception of myself isn't necessarily right. We always feel like we know our own, this is my truth, this is who I am.
And it's the worst possible version of
right,
the truth.
it is.
Yeah.
It's the worst possible narrative of who we are. And really, Scott, my husband, has been amazing in that, because he doesn't hesitate to tell me that I'm beautiful and tell me that stuff. And we said earlier, that doesn't necessarily change your body image, but that helps when you have a partner who's supporting you and who's like, I see you and I understand that you're having those issues, but I want you to know this is how I see you, that you're beautiful and you're strong and you're sexy. And so having a partner to support you and understand that, I know you have body image issues, but this is how I see you, is super important.
Right. I think it's important to mention too that our husbands are not free of this body image gremlin either.
That's true.
Right? They both work out really hard and think a lot about how their body looks and how it's perceived.
This isn't just a woman issue.
Right. Yeah, so we went around the table the other night when we had a few other lifestyle couples with us, and asked what their experience of body image issues were. And one of the interesting things that came up was Mrs. Beachbed said that she feels like the lifestyle has done a lot to make her feel better about herself. And in a one-on-one situation, or 2-on-2, or 6-on-6, she feels good about her body, and she feels like it's been really affirming for her. But the thing that has torn her down more than anything is social media and the posting pictures on Twitter. And she's had the same issue I've had, and that you wrote about too in your blog post, about just feeling like you see yourself from angles that you don't typically see yourself from when you take these kind of sexy photos. And it can be kind of demoralizing to realize, oh damn, is that what I look like?
Right. Yes. The camera captures the best and the worst. And so that can really put me in a bad headspace if we're having a photo shoot for a blog or something coming out and you have 500 pictures, and if I'm looking at them, maybe one is usable.
Yes.
Scott would say all of them are usable, but it does, because it will highlight those roles when you're moving a certain direction, you know, that maybe a video doesn't necessarily capture because it's not a still, but the pictures do. So a photo shoot can really put me in a bad headspace where I have to kind of do some mental gymnastics to work myself out of that, and some positive affirmations. And
yeah, it's hard. And I'm sure there are women on Twitter that would hate us for saying this.
Yeah.
That, you know, they see the good photos,
right,
but they don't see the 150 other ones that were left on the editing room floor, and the tears maybe that
right.
that were shed over.
Well,
that.
and so we're all in this together, you know, so I feel like we're all on an even playing field. We all have issues and trauma points in our life that caused body image issues. And we've had that talk, you know, like some women would just hate us if they, you know, heard conversations that, you know, oh, I'm fat, or, you know, the self-talk that we have in our head. But, you know, I've had clients sit in my office who had trouble gaining weight. And that was a huge struggle for them, where other women would be like, oh my God, that's a really great problem to have, right? You can't gain weight. I can't lose weight. You're not allowed to feel bad about not being able to gain weight. But she couldn't get pregnant because she couldn't gain weight. And so that's a real issue that as women, I think we need to come together and say, you know, it's okay. I'm going to give you space to have and work through your own body image issues. I do too. And I'm going to support you and not judge you for that, or not feel bad about myself because of something you're struggling with.
Right.
You know, it's not a projection or a reflection on you because I'm struggling with something.
Yeah, and I think the lifestyle is the most healthy place I've ever been as far as women supporting women.
Yeah.
Because I think in the vanilla world, there's this fear of competition, that if a beautiful woman walks in the room, she might get the attention of your husband, and that feels threatening, and so you immediately don't like that beautiful woman.
Yeah.
But in the lifestyle, you're hoping that beautiful woman will attract your man's attention, and that they'll want to come over.
Agree.
And so I've found so much love and support and affirmation from women in the lifestyle who just lift each other up and are just so generous with their compliments. And
I agree.
that's another thing that's been so wonderful and unexpected about the lifestyle, and that has been helpful for me in boosting my self-esteem.
I agree. You know, I hear women say, mostly in the vanilla world, where, you know, I only get along with men. I get along with men better than I do women.
I used to say that too.
And I don't think that's the case in the lifestyle, because the women are so vulnerable and open and honest and supportive and loving and kind.
Yeah. So, do you have any tools or tips or skills to share, either about how you view yourself or how you approach the lifestyle, or I don't know, even exercise or food? I mean, this is your area of expertise, so if you want to give us a few pro tips, that would be wonderful.
Personally, managing body image issues for me, I have to focus on my fitness and my nutrition because that makes me feel better.
Right.
It's something that I know I can control. If I get 3 workouts in a week or 4 workouts in a week, and I can control what I eat and what food I put in my body. But also I focus on affirmations and my mindset, and we do mindset work. I do that with my clients as well, where once a week we do our bright spots, and we're focusing on, doesn't necessarily have to be what's happening in our life. It can be about ourselves, like what did we find in ourselves this week that we loved? Maybe not physical, but like what can you do? What can your body do for you? How did it serve you this week? So that has been helpful for me. And just trying to change that internal dialogue when I say, look at a picture and, oh God, I look so fat. Okay, but what looks good about it?
Yeah. It's so hard to see those things, isn't
Sometimes
it
it is.
A bad thing.
Yeah. But, and really, I'm not a doctor. If somebody is struggling with real like eating disorders and stuff like that, there are therapists that they need to see. I actually was in therapy for quite a while, and it was very helpful. But finding a therapist that specializes in eating disorders and body dysmorphia is really helpful. And there's some really great ones out there.
Yeah, I went through a couple of years of counseling and then
Yeah.
better for it.
Yeah.
Okay, April. I am so glad that you got to be here with me in person.
Me too.
And tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find us online at naughtygym.com, on Twitter, Naughty Gym, and also Instagram, Naughty Gym.
And if you are feeling like some good hard workouts would make you feel better about your body, they have an online gym where for just $20 a month, they give you, what do they give you, April?
So we give you remote coaching. My husband Scott and myself, we do daily workout videos. So you have video demonstrations. You don't need a gym, you just need a dumbbell and a home and the will to want to. But we are your personal coaches, so we kind of guide you through it. And then if you need more accountability or one-on-one work, we also do that, some personal coaching as well. So naughtygym.com is where you find us, and or you can message us at naughtygymonline@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to the Monogamish Marriage Podcast. And do you know how we sign off here at the Monogamish Marriage Podcast, April?
No?
We say, I love you.
Oh, I love you.